Welcome to another exciting edition of Plank of the Week, the fastest growing television show that we produce here at Talk Radio. As I often say, it's the only television show we produce at Talk Radio, but that's why it's growing so fast, because people love it. And I'm delighted to say we've got a newbie with us this week. Martin Daubney has joined us, former Brexit Party MEP, now editorial director of Unlocked, which is a new sort of venture on the internet. YouTube interviews with the likes of Lawrence Fox. In fact, the last time I saw you, you were singing at me with Lawrence Fox and Calvin Robinson, Land of Hope and Glory.
That's right.
Which was rather good. Very spontaneous.
Well, it wasn't just spontaneous. You drew it out of us,
yes. It was good.
You made us have a patriotic surge.
Yes. Well, Esther Krakue's with us as well. Esther, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
She's now a regular on Talk Radio, of course, and a commentator as well. Quite a racy little Twitter account, if I may say so as well, from time to time.
Yeah.
But we've got plenty of planks to talk about, because here we are still in the midst of coronavirus. We don't know yet whether the government's getting it right. We suspect they're probably not. Yeah. If you're living in Liverpool right now, you'll be watching this with some alacrity, because you won't be able to go anywhere. So you'll be glued to your television sets. But Martin, why don't we start with you? Who's your first nomination for today's Plank of the Week?
I'd like to go for a nice defensive stroke, a nice easy opener. Yep. Sadiq Khan.
Yes.
Sadiq Khan. I've been waiting a long time, Mike, to come on the show and call this guy what a planker. What a planker.
He really is.
Right, so I was an MEP. I shook hands, I debated with, I ranted at the people who I believe at the time were the most duplicitous political pygmies on the planet. Yeah. I think Sadiq Khan is worse than all of them. Yeah. He's done more U-turns than a driving instructor. He lied to get in when he said he would get rid of stop and search, and then as the bodies piled up, I'm afraid he had to change his mind. He said that we couldn't get coronavirus on the tube. Now it's compulsory masks. Yeah. He said it was okay to go and protest for Black Lives Matter, but don't protest about the lockdown. Right. The guy says whatever it takes to get in. He's a political pygmy with a first-class degree in gesture politics.
He's also the guy, and I think you probably were still in Brussels at the time. Did he not go over to Brussels?
Yes, he did.
As the representative of London to ask, ridiculously, whether London could stay in the EU while the rest of Britain left it.
Yeah, and isn't it funny how Remainers always complained about foreign involvement in British politics, and yet you're right, he went out there, he toadied up to Michel Barnier, he was trying to get London to remain as an associate member of the European Union. Legally impossible, but again, gesture politics on the grand stage. We must remember, it's my favourite stat, more people voted to leave in London than voted for Sadiq Khan as the Mayor of London. 40% of Londoners voted to leave, and I was one of them. Don't like the bloke.
No. Funnily enough, just like Scotland, because Scotland are always telling us how, 60% of people in Scotland voted to remain in the European Union. And you go, yeah, but more people voted to leave than actually voted for the SNP. Yeah. So you can get stuff with your independence and your ludicrous claims that you're going to be able to actually, manage to live in the European Union on your own as an independent country, even though the European Union would never allow it to happen. By the way, we'll give I'm not going to include her this week, but we always carry over somebody, and we have to carry over Margaret Ferrier, I think, this week, simply because she still hasn't bloody resigned. Yeah. And she's now saying, by the way, the coronavirus makes you do weird things. It makes you confused. It makes you not know what to do. Yeah. Really? Yeah. So it makes you not realise that you might be actually positive because you've had a positive test.
Maybe she meant cocaine.
Maybe
not
she
coronavirus.
did. Maybe she did. Esther, what's your number one?
So my number one, the CCP.
Yes.
So I don't know. I think people have happened to forget that this virus came from China.
They have forgotten.
And
the only person that ever says that it did is Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, and everyone hates him.
And
apparently.
He gets called racist for doing that.
Exactly. But the Kung flu, as I like to call it, originated in China. Now the reason is, it's not because I don't think the Chinese government plugged it amongst their own people, but while they were letting international flights fly out to carry on the virus as a early birthday present for everyone, they had shut down local flights within China. Right. And now they've only reported, I think since the peak of this pandemic, 45,000 deaths.
Really?
Since I think June or something like that, in a country with 1.2 billion people.
Right. It's a bit unlikely, that, isn't it?
Yeah. A little bit. I don't know. I'm suspicious. I'm a little bit suspicious. Yeah. But the CCP have really screwed us all over. I think they've kind of faded from the conversation, but we need to bring them back up because we need to point the finger at someone. Because the reason why, I don't like Boris at the moment very much. I don't think anyone does. But even the reason why we're even contemplating all these ridiculous measures is because of China. Right. Yeah. It's because they weren't honest with us.
I think that's fair. It's a good point to make, because at the end of the day, no matter how useless this government apparently seems to be, it's not really their fault. They did have this thing to deal with. But did I not read this week that it's come back in China as well? That someone like Qingdao or somewhere, some town that sounds like a beer. I think they've had another outbreak. But the other thing that's weird about that, 45,000 deaths, as you say, in a country of, 10 billion or something like that?
1.2 billion.
2 billion? Well, who knows if that's even true, right? But, I mean, I remember seeing a piece written by somebody who said that there was 10,000 or something? They had somehow managed to see that 10 or 20,000 mobile phones had just disappeared.
Had just vanished,
Vanished overnight, in terms of signals. Yep. And they reckoned that it was because they'd all been put in some mass grave. Yeah. And the problem is with China, you just don't know what to believe. There's no reason to believe anything they say.
No, I think right from the very beginning, when they said, it's okay, we've got this virus under control, it's over. I mean, who would believe anything they ever say?
Yeah. Right.
45,000, I severely doubt.
It seems unlikely, doesn't it?
You can add a few zeros to that and it still might be wrong.
Exactly right. My first one is going to be the Metropolitan Police.
Yes.
Now, they've come in for plenty of stick over the years, and certainly now at the moment when they're being asked to kind of investigate whether or not people are having parties. I see that they've fined a couple of people up in Norfolk 10 grand. I mean, imagine living in Norfolk and having a party that is worth 10 grand. I mean, I can't imagine it somehow. But anyway... but I'm putting them up for basically cautioning Darren Grimes. Yep. Darren Grimes, a guy that we know well, who's a lovely bloke, right? Has never done anything, as far as I know, that he should ever be ashamed of. Who was hounded by the Electoral Commission for years because they thought that he had somehow committed some gross, offence of taking money under false pretences while he was working for Vote Leave. And just nonsensical kind of, hounding of a young man who was simply trying to make his way in life. Now, after everybody remembers that interview he did with David Starkey back in July, where David Starkey was probably rather unwise to phrase what he said in the way that he said it. Yeah. But in fact, if he hadn't used the word damn, it probably wouldn't have been quite so bad. I mean, he was trying to make the point that genocide wasn't happening in Africa because black people still survived, which technically is not actually right, because you can say genocide doesn't have to wipe out an entire population of people. I mean, you can commit genocide in Bosnia against the Croats. There's still Croats living there, but there was still genocide, you know what I mean? But anyway, he's now being told that he has to turn up on Friday of this week to Kingston Police Station, I think it is, to give his account of events as to why he didn't question David Starkey more. And I'm thinking, what's it got to do with them?
Do you have nothing better to do?
Yeah.
How about release the Don Butler footage?
Well, we'll come on to that, won't we? Because that's another issue for the police. But I mean, are they now going to say that they have to sit on, whenever you do an interview on your new project, or Esther, if you ever come in and sit with me and talk radio, that we have to have a member of the police force sitting there to make sure I ask the right questions? I don't think so.
I think we need to ask some serious questions when the police get involved in journalism, full stop.
Right.
But they're questioning Darren, and I said, police crimes, not grimes.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, he's a journalist,
right.
And he didn't even say the thing.
Right.
So how soon before they go for Starkey?
Right.
I reckon they will. I reckon they'll go for Starkey as well, because it seems now, if enough people complain about something, the police are duty-bound to get involved at a time when people are dropping like flies because of knife crime. What's going on with the police? Right. I think you're right, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the rule is. My understanding is if one person complains, they can then decide to take action or not, depending. But I mean, we've all been through. I mean, I put a tweet out over the weekend, which wasn't that, which a lot of people said, you're the unluckiest man in Britain, because I said, my partner's had her phone stolen, my son's been punched in the face, I've had my car nicked, I've been burgled. They were like, Christ, you might want to consider moving, But I was just making a point. Yeah. But I mean, I know people who all of those things have happened to, and every single one of them have not even ever seen a police officer. Yeah. All they've got is a crime number, so they can claim on the insurance. But the police don't bother coming round. And I've had loads of people on Talk Radio ring me up and say, "Oh yeah, the office got burgled, and they sent a fingerprints guy out about 3 days later." By which time all the fingerprints were gone.
I do think it goes back to the Sadiq Khan plank as well.
Yeah.
That is, Khan has made a big deal of online hate hubs and policing tweets and not policing the streets.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, there's a fundamental disconnect between what most people consider effective and worthwhile policing versus policing being offended.
Right.
It's ridiculous that we do live in an age where if someone's offended, the police are getting involved. It's a waste of police resources. I'm from Nottingham, and in Nottingham, misogyny is a hate crime. So
is it?
Just in Nottingham? It is, yeah. And I looked
just in Nottingham?
Just in Nottingham.
Why?
So Nottinghamshire Police is unique and that misogyny is a hate crime, of course, other police forces want it too, because it's an easy thing to get a number on.
Yeah, right.
You just got to see a tweet that, well, we've dealt with that.
Right.
But the problem is, when you look into what those figures are, if you tell a sexist joke that somebody overhears and they believe that that's sexist,
Right.
that needs to be registered with the police. Well, I mean, I'm coming on to comedy soon.
Yeah.
Free speech is in terrible, perilous situation.
Right. Yeah.
And the police, I think, are entirely out of step with public opinion. Darren Grimes is being hauled over the coals for the sins of people who want to be offended by Brexiteers, by those on the right, by Conservatives.
Yeah.
It's pathetic and it needs to stop.
And of course, people who have been on the side of the police on this one, or just anti-Darren Grimes, have said, well, you know, inciting racial hatred is an offence. Which it probably is, but I don't actually think that anything that Starkey said incited racial hatred.
But
this is the trouble with all these.
Either.
Well, this is also the trouble with these words, isn't it? Because I mean, what does it mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have to say to incite racial hatred. I literally don't know what it would be. I don't know what I would be saying. I mean, I would imagine I'd be saying you should hate all black people. Does that mean I'm inciting racial hatred?
Well, it's kind of touch and go at this point.
I don't know.
It keeps moving.
I mean, I don't know.
The police just don't have time for this. I'm sorry, the police don't have time to babysit the country over these stupid lockdown measures, and they don't have time to call in and question journalists who just sit there watching someone make ill thought out statements.
Right.
It's just a waste of our police's time.
Yeah.
And they're not even funded enough to be doing this. I mean, you have to think, if you're actually spending time and resources doing this, what is the opportunity cost? What could you actually be doing that you're not?
Right.
And
There's all the paperwork that
infuriating.
goes around with it as well. I mean, I said rather sort of slightly half tongue in cheek, maybe we should sit in on some of the police interviews that they do with you know, the criminals to see if they're doing their jobs, because I'm certainly not going to accept any police officer coming to me and saying, oh, you should have asked him that question. Well, get lost, get stuffed.
Yeah.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Yes, that's probably a hate crime now.
It probably is, yeah. But I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, all of these things. I mean, I remember when I was in Scotland, a guy got into a fight with another guy in a pub, and it sort of spilled out into the street. And because at one point, one of them called the other one an English bastard, basically, it became a hate crime because of the word English.
Yeah.
And if you hadn't said that, it wouldn't have been a hate crime. And you go, well, this is mad, isn't it?
Yeah, because the whole point is, if the person who receives the insult or even overhears it says they're offended, then we are now in a situation where the police need to get involved. I think we've lost track of what law and order is.
Yeah.
Most people want proper law and order. No,
Who cares?
Exactly.
Who cares about being offended? Oh, gosh, I'm so sick of hearing
I think
this.
you put a tweet out this week, did you not, which said actually it's now worse to be accused of racism
Than being an
than
actual
it actually
racist.
to be an actual racist.
Yeah,
you know?
who
If somebody
cares?
calls you a racist, your career can be finished. I mean, people can get fired from their jobs.
Yeah, precisely.
You know.
Yeah, that's where we are, and it is, and I think that's the point, that the power of language has shifted to those taking the offence.
Yeah.
Because to be accused of racism is A, terrible, and B, it's career threatening, as you said. And how do you prove you're not?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. How do you? This is the thing. This is a crime that is effectively, you can't prove your own innocence.
Yeah.
Once it's a charge that just stands. Like, look at Lawrence Fox, for instance. I mean, just ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm
And
out with
you're
him
right.
tonight.
You're right, because you end up having to then deny it, and by the fact that you're denying it, it makes you look guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when people call me racist on Twitter, I just ignore it now.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth getting into it. Because it's like, if you say, I'm not racist and here's why, it just turns into another ridiculously
And you can't
long
even say
thread
I
of
have
nonsense.
black friends because then just,
I know, you can't
that's
say
what
that,
all the
that's
racists
what they
say.
all say.
That's
you
the
know.
ultimate proof you're racist, saying
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
I've got black friends, I've got
I
gay
have
friends, well, there you
an
go, you're
Indian
proving
neighbour.
my thesis. And so therefore, don't get involved at all.
Yeah, it really is. Second one for you, Martin.
I'm going to go fanning into this. I'm going to go for Frankie Boyle. The once funny comedian who, if we cast our minds back, used to make jokes about things like Down syndrome.
Yeah.
He was actually genuinely offensive, and I think pretty funny.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
He was.
I'm happy for people to make jokes. Comedy is the last bastion of free speech.
Yes.
They used to get in trouble. You could get hung in Hitler's Germany for telling inappropriate jokes about Nazis.
Right.
You get sent to the gulag in Russia for sending jokes about presidents that are inappropriate. Frankie Boyle's show New World Order had the thing about kill Whitey on it. Now, I wasn't offended by that. It was just a joke.
Right.
But how come Darren Grimes is being hauled before the police for something that one of his guests said, but Frankie Boyle can say, one of his guests can say, let's kill Whitey, and that's different. And I think the point is this. I don't believe that comedians like Frankie Boyle or Keith Lemon or David Williams are really buying into this wokery. I think they're using it as a self-defense mechanism for the fact that they used to be offensive when that was okay.
Right.
and now they want to prove that they've atoned for their sins.
Right.
And they don't want their front door to be kicked through. They don't want to be on the same list as Grindy.
When you saw Williams talking about Little Britain, I thought it was quite pathetic.
Yeah.
The way that he was kind of apologising for what we obviously wouldn't do that now. Well, why not?
Yeah.
It was bloody funny.
Yeah.
Right? What's wrong with it?
Tonight, I'm going to Comedy Unleashed tonight. And it's 3 nights, sold out. You know, it's people that are...
Social distancing, I hope.
Because it's socially distanced.
Well, probably is when we get in there. But the point is, I think we can't be going towards a time where we have illegal comedy clubs in speakeasies, 3 knocks and you're in.
Yeah.
Where jokes
but that's what it's going to be
underground.
like, though,
That's what
isn't
it's
it?
getting like. You know, it'd be like Fight Club, but underground comedy clubs. We need a return to full-blown offensive humour, and don't apologise for it.
Yeah.
Now I know you're a trailblazer on this, Mike.
Well, listen, I love upsetting people. It's what I do for a living. You know, unfortunately, I mean, I do have to be a bit careful because obviously I'm bound by Ofcom and all sorts of rules when I'm on the radio.
Yeah.
But I mean, when we used to do live stage shows, my God, some of the stuff we would come out with, you know, some of it I can't even remember because I was pissed when I did it. You know.
Yeah.
But the point is that Frankie Boyle used to be alternative, right?
Yeah.
The problem with Frankie Boyle now is that he's now mainstream and he's also now establishment, right? He actually blocked me on Twitter because I said something to him, I can't remember what it was, that he didn't like.
Yeah.
You know, like all the people that block me on Twitter, they take offence at something I've said when they're supposed to be the ones that give offence, but they can't take it.
But it's like back in the day, I used to edit Loaded magazine, I used to compare a comedy award every year, the Laughters, and we had like Jimmy Carr, all these sort of people turned up, and they were incredibly offensive. They tell jokes about things I wouldn't even repeat.
Right.
But the point is, people didn't have mobile phones.
Well, do you remember Jimmy Carr got in trouble, didn't he, for making fun of that guy in a wheelchair? It turned out the guy in the wheelchair was a vet who actually thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, there you go.
He didn't have a problem.
Taking offence on behalf of other people is a modern pastime.
Yeah.
The point is, you know, I think all these modern day woke comedians are frauds.
Yeah.
They're not actually woke. They're pretending to be woke, so they don't get sacked for the sins of yesteryear. They're all frauds.
And this is another thing, being offended on behalf of other people. This is like my life as a black person. I can't believe I'm saying that. But it's like, you know, people like Owen Jones will be like, the Tory party want to deport all black people, and that is offensive. Baseless accusation, and he's offended on my behalf. And it's like, leave me alone. You know, and this is where the conversation has shifted. It's not actual people that really you would think would be offended. It's, you know, I don't know, all these white liberals that are offended on other people's behalves because they think that's going to someone protect them. And I'm like, be offensive, be rude,
there's this new
be
phrase,
obscene.
right?
I want to laugh.
No, I've got to ask you this now because obviously I would like to be your white ally.
Yeah.
Because that's the new thing, right? It's always like you have to have a black person who you are a white ally to.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is so condescending.
Literally.
It's like
so
having a pet, isn't it? So it's like, so I have you as a pet, shall I?
Yeah.
You know, and I can help you with your career because obviously you can't help yourself on account of your skin colour. I mean, it's absolutely the most offensive thing I can imagine.
Yeah, I agree. And you get people like David Lammy like saying comic relief is like white saviour syndrome. Yet you should be a white ally.
I'll tell you what's funny about David Lammy. Somebody gave him a radio show. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. You know, the show's not very funny, but there we are. But no, so give us your second one, Esther.
My second one, okay. Is it Dominic West?
It is Dominic West.
Yeah, Dominic West, yes. The actor.
He made it this is amazingly,
Double
last week,
plankery.
right?
Yeah.
Last week we said we should make Dominic West Plank of the Week because he'll never be on the list again, right?
Yeah.
And now he's on it again.
Yeah, double trouble, yeah.
He's back.
He needs a round of applause for that one.
Yeah, well done, Dominic.
Yeah, but Dominic, who was so kind to jump for joy when Trump was diagnosed
these lefties
with
are so
the Kung
nice,
flu. Yeah, exactly. Now, yesterday or the day before, these racy pictures of him with Lily West, I think.
He's playing away.
Is it Lily West?
Is it Lily Jones?
Lily Jones or something. She's a blonde 31-year-old actress who's been with a few.
I actually recognise her because I've seen her in something. I can't remember what it was, but you know.
I think she was in Cinderella or something. I'm so embarrassed to know that, but she was. But she's been with quite a few Hollywood stars and all the rest of it. So she's not like.
She used to date Doctor Who, I think. Matt
exactly,
Smith, right?
and she dated the Superman guy.
Yes.
Chris.
Yeah, Chris Evans.
Chris Evans,
That's
who is
right.
just delicious. Anyway.
She's been about a bit, is what you're saying.
Steady.
She's not inexperienced.
I mean,
she's not inexperienced. Okay, yeah, you know. But she broke. I don't know if she broke up with him, but I would never leave Chris Evans. I'm just saying personally.
No.
Just
well, maybe he broke up with her.
You never know. But now she traded Mr. Hunk for a 50-year-old married man who's now saying his marriage is going great.
Yeah. Well, he did that great thing where he decided it would be a good idea to get back with the missus down in the West Country near Chippenham somewhere, where I used to live, and be pictured with her sort of, you know, kissing and cuddling with his wife,
Yeah.
who must be mortified because, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we've all been there. Well, at least I
Those
certainly
pictures
have.
with Lily James were
I mean,
really
luckily
bad.
I've never been pictured in the full frontal newspaper sense, but, you know, if somebody finds a picture of you with another person that you're not supposed to be with, they're not usually over the moon about it.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're on a scooter with them, with your arms around them,
Hugging
or
and kissing, I was like,
and staring into their
get a
eyes, and, you know,
room.
nuzzling their neck.
I wonder if this goes back to the same point as the Frankie Boyle thing, and that is, if you know that you're kind of playing hide the salami with somebody, then what better way? What better
that for a
way?
while.
What better way to show that you're actually virtuous?
Well, they were in Italy.
Yeah.
You know,
What better way
mortadella.
to show that you're a virtuous person than to say, well, I hate Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I hate Trump,
Yeah.
and I'm going to leap for joy when he's got COVID-19. Or I hate all these racist people because they've got all this sort of dodgy stuff, you see.
Although,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, and perversely, I think, because of what he said about Trump, it actually made the story better.
Of course he
Yeah.
did. They
Because
went
I
for
don't
it.
think he would have, in any way, the Mail would not have put this guy on page one if it hadn't been for that. Because he's one of those guys
Yeah.
that you wouldn't necessarily know. I mean, I only know about him because I loved The Wire.
Same here, yeah.
Somebody bought me The Wire, and I thought he was American.
Yeah.
I mean, his
That's
American
right.
accent was that good. The same with Idris Elba. He was also American.
McNulty,
right?
yeah.
And I thought they were both these really great American actors. And I found out he was English. I
Yeah.
thought, blimey, that's amazing.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
talented
And also,
guy.
I really liked his character in The Wire because he was this kind of drunken Irish police
exactly.
officer, you know, drinking and shagging his way through Baltimore. And it was great.
Yeah.
But now, I just think, what a complete arse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so virtuous for
Yeah.
not liking Trump, but it's great for him to cheat on his wife with a woman who's almost 20 years his
Yes,
junior.
I know.
So that's the
Maybe it
lovely
gives us-
hypocrisy we never see from the left.
But maybe it gives us hope that if these kind of tall poppies are going to come out and virtue signal, and then suddenly the Mail go for them,
Yes.
and dig all the dirt on the fact they're being naughty boys.
Well, do you know
maybe
what's interesting?
maybe they'll pipe down.
What I find interesting about the Mail is that basically it went through a period of kind of wokeness, I
Yeah,
think,
it did.
when Geordie Greig took it over first. But I think he's slightly beginning to get the old sort of Mail back in a way. And I think it might be because he's starting to let go of the reins a little bit. And all the kind of really, really good journalists, because there's loads of great journalists there, are kind of taking the paper back to its roots in a way, so it's going a bit more right, because for a while it was really wishy-washy and kind of flabby and wet and lefty and Remainery and all that.
Totally was.
You know.
It was always that kind of barometer of Middle England, which its critics hated it for, but that's why it was so good. It really knew that people were annoyed about Land of Hope and Glory, statues, cancel culture, and then it went a bit soft. I think they realised that the market's not in being woke now.
No.
The market is where that's why your audience
Well,
is
that's
going
why.
through the roof.
I mean, the whole of talk radio is going like the clappers. You can't
Yeah.
believe how many people are now. I mean, every day people, either tweeting or ringing up and saying we've come over from the dark side, as we like to call
from
it.
the dark side.
Come into the light. It's like poltergeist. But it's true because it is. I mean, it's really, people don't want to be depressed all the time.
Yeah.
And if you listen to that other statement, all you get is depressed. Pissed off, just really not very happy.
Not fun.
Well, I'm going to go, speaking of wokeness, and I'm told Lily James is her name, by the way.
Lily, I'm sorry for not knowing her
No,
name.
that's all right, don't worry. National Maritime Museum are the latest museum of this fine city of ours that have decided that it's time to reinvent history, right? We've already had the British Museum, who managed to remove the statue of the bloke who actually founded the British Museum, who actually started the British Museum with a load of artefacts from his own collection on the basis that he might have had something to do with slavery, right? So that wasn't a good thing. Natural History Museum then said they were going to have a look at Darwin, the founder of modern biology, because they thought he might be a bit of a racist. And you're kind of going, well, that's bad news for the origin of the species then. As I said, I think on one plank of the week a few weeks ago, they're going to blow up the Galapagos Islands and say, we don't want to go anywhere near that, because Darwin found those and, get rid of all that. So now the National Maritime Museum, based in Greenwich, next to the Cutty Sark, not a million miles away from Portsmouth, where HMS Victory sits, but Admiral Lord Nelson, Horatio Nelson, one of the great sort of historical figures of this country, they say now that his history is a bit complex.
Yeah.
So forget about the fact that he actually, won the Battle of Waterloo. Forget about the fact that he died in action. Forget about the fact that he was one of the great sea commanders of the history of the world. They now think that, he might not have been that good about slavery, because apparently he once wrote a letter to somebody about William Wilberforce, who was obviously all about, freeing the slaves, saying that the bloke was a bit of a nuisance. Now, he didn't say he's a bit of a nuisance because he wants to free up all these slaves because I love slaves. He didn't say any of that.
No.
It's just a letter that he wrote as a powerful individual to somebody else in power about how he thought William Wilberforce was not really a very great force for good. But really, seriously, I mean,
everyone
Greenwich.
was racist back then. So bloody what?
Right.
Like, I'm sorry. I don't think it's you can't judge people back then by today's standards.
Of course
because
not.
everyone was racist. Everyone benefited from the slave trade.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that is a part of history that's not going to go away. You
Right.
can't just keep manipulating history and say, oh, we need to cover this person's statue because everyone's traumatized and we'll all just burst into tears. It is history. It is the nature of it. There are so many instances in our human history, that African history, Asian history, Latin American history, that are filled with atrocities, right? It's not just the transatlantic slave trade. We've had slaves throughout our entire history as human beings, okay? This needs to stop.
I think that there's something crushingly predictable about this, though, because if you remember back in the day, Afua Hirsch, who now is like royalty.
Oh yeah,
in the liberal media.
She was doing she was doing a program on TV the other night
with Samuel H. Jackson.
That's right.
And the point is, she said years ago in The Guardian, let's topple Nelson's column.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing that's not that will stop that is none of these pencil necks will be able to climb Nelson's column with a rope long enough. They can't pull it down. It's too high up.
Yeah.
But isn't it crushingly predictable? They've been for.
And also, she
Churchill.
is, talk about white privilege. I mean, this is a woman who I think has either a white mother or a white father, one of the two, I'm not sure. Grew up in a very, very well-to-do household, right, in Scandinavia, I think. And is the very furthest person that you would be removed from if you were, an inner-city, working-class black guy trying to get on in the world in Britain. Right, she does not represent him at all. She is nothing like that.
All the privileges this country could
she went to
possibly
private
offer
school.
anyone.
She went to private school.
Went
I mean, all of that.
Went to Oxford as a barrister.
Yeah.
And now she's made a name and she actually profits about speaking on black issues when she herself is as white as she is black.
Right.
It is so ridiculous.
It really is.
I can't even believe it.
Yeah.
That's where the money is. I think that's what I think it comes down to as well. It's a bit like, Richard Branson was also the world's biggest environmentalist.
Yeah.
Bono, a billionaire, was also about ending famine. Well, just give me your money, mate.
Right.
And I think now it's the same thing. It's like, actually, I've got quite a lot of privilege, but it's far easier to say I haven't and put myself as a saviour of those who I'm who've been oppressed for generations. I'm a coal miner from Nottingham. Afua Hirsch got more privilege than I ever had.
Yeah.
Went to a better school, went to a better university.
I mean, you'd have no
people
chance
ever
of getting
had.
into Oxford. Same with me. I mean, I went to a grammar school in the days when there were such things in London.
Yeah.
I think we got something like 2 people into Oxford every year. I didn't even go into the sixth form because I had a row with the dodgy father who ran the place, and ended up going to FE college, smoking a load of dope for 2 years in East London, But this is the problem, that all of these people who claim, and Owen Jones is another one, just because he talks with a northern voice and he makes out that he's,
You can't point out the
northern
list
white
as well.
working class boy. Really? Have you seen the room he zooms from? I mean, it looks like some mansion or other, And they're all absolutely privileged. They're all academics. They're all getting paid by think tanks. They've all been to university. And, ordinary people in this country don't live like that.
Yeah, and I think the people that lecture us the most about privilege seem to be born into the most privileged.
Yeah.
That's what I think is a general rule of thumb. Like the BBC, I used to work there a lot. I was the only sort of, I guess you'd call commoner in a room.
Yeah.
Now, The Guardian, if you look at their columnists, they nearly all went to Oxford universities. Now, that's no problem.
Right.
But I don't go around lecturing you on stuff. So how come you're telling me
But
I've
also,
got privilege?
I mean, you'll know this from going to the BBC. They talk about diversity at the BBC. They're all bloody middle class. Don't worry about what colour their skin is. They are all middle class.
And they all think the same way. And they can never read the room. They can never read the room and they can never take a joke. They're just going like a bull in a china shop, just going after what they think is right and wrong and trying to lecture the masses about how, you're not privileged, you're super privileged, you're this and that. It's just annoying.
And like all of these museums, they're saying, well, it's just a review.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, really? Because I did the same when I got the Natural History Museum on, and they actually, bizarrely, in a fit of incredible sort of supplication, they actually tweeted me back. But when they were getting criticised for the Darwin thing, and they said, please look at this study that we've done in order to understand what it is that we're trying to do. And the headline of the study was, why all natural history museums are racist. And you go, well, pretty much looks like you've made up your mind then.
Yeah.
But of course they are, because the people who went to places that Darwin went to came from here. And they brought things back from there, right? Some of the things were stolen. Some of the things were purchased,
I think the kind of representatives of these institutions, I think they're cowards.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. The British Library, the National Trust, English Heritage.
Yeah, the National Trust, another one.
They are all self-flagellating now, I think, because they just want this to go away. But rather than saying, do you know what, there's some checkered history out there, we're going to own that.
Right.
Let's have a mature conversation about it, but don't pull the statues down.
But you're right, though, because it hadn't actually occurred to me about the whole Nelson's column thing, because that's where it will go next. You know, if they actually succeed in kind of somehow creating a special exhibition and it's a magnificent place down in Greenwich. I mean, it really is an amazing space. It's a beautiful area. You know, it's all part of Royal Greenwich Park and all that. If they do succeed in kind of rewriting Nelson, they probably will start petitioning to pull down the Nelson's column, which would be absolutely tragic.
You know, I think it was 2017 when Hirsch first wrote that piece, and it became almost the prototype pointless protest that became a real nightmare. And I think it's going to keep happening until the authorities say, do you know what, go away. Yes, we made some mistakes, but we can learn from them. But we don't learn from historical mistakes by rewriting history or by toppling statues. That's anti-democratic, it's cretinous, and it's divisive.
Why is the focus always on British and American history? Why is the focus on always being self-flagellating about British and American history when there are so many, you know, it's not the center of the world. There are other countries with other histories that are also not very glamorous that you could also focus on. Indian history, you know, pre-British colonialism was not great either.
I think it's about money. I think it's about repatriation.
It's always about one type of history.
Ultimately, it's about money, it's about power, it's about reprogramming modern politics with shame, with vindication, so more people like us get into positions of power, which means less white men.
Yeah, so they can influence the narrative.
And it means changing politics, changing power, and rewriting the bits that don't fit. Why don't Black Lives Matter care about modern day slavery?
Right.
Yeah. What about black slavery in North Africa right now?
Precisely.
Well, you don't have to go that far. You go up to Leicester. And there's a bunch of it going on up there.
There's a report out today. We did a show on Unlocks during the lockdown about the Leicester lockdown, about the sweatshops that were working, and the whistleblowers. Andrew Bridgen, the Conservative, spoke out against Claudia Webb, the Corbynista in Leicester East, who just turned a blind eye. Came out today. They've been making millions and laundering money by slave labour, cash in hand, and they don't want to talk about it on the Liberal left.
No.
It's happening right now.
And an awful lot of the people that come across the channel in dinghies end up working there as well, by the way.
And a lot of the slave masters in Leicester are other Asian guys taking advantage of Asian citizens. Where's the outrage about that? Oh no, let's go for Nelson's column. It's easier, and it's just easier to blame the system, those in power. But it's happening in plain sight in front of us. And the same people who complain about Nelson's column are silent about Leicester. Funny, eh, Mike?
I know, isn't it bizarre? Funnily enough, I was going to say, and I think I'm going to bring you on to your next and final nominee, because in France, funnily enough, Macron actually came out and said, we are not going to remove any statues. And so for a guy who we generally see as a bit of a weakling and a bit of a sort of, Frenchman, which I use quite liberally as an insult. You know, he's actually done the right thing. And Boris, funnily enough, actually, when he came out and made that speech a little while ago about how we're very proud of our country, we like singing Land of Hope and Glory, we like our statues, you know, bugger off, leave us alone. That was actually one of his stronger moments, I would say, in the last month or so, you know. But I think Macron's one of your nominees, isn't he?
Yeah, the trumped-up modern-day Napoleon, Emmanuel Macron, obviously as a former Brexit Party MEP, he was one of the guys that we had most chagrin with, but he's in the news this week.
Did you ever meet him?
No, he never went that far. Right. He never went to European Parliament. He was too busy hiding behind his brick walls in Paris, inside his gilded cage, and that's what he's like. He's in the news now because Thursday is October the 15th. It's Brexit Day. It's the latest deadline when the Brits have said we will get a Brexit deal done. Won't happen, Mike. It won't happen. And fishing is huge on this agenda. Now, the Remainers, the DJs on the other side, the dark side, they go, but fishing's only 0.1% of the GDP. Why do you care? Well, why do the French care about fishing when it's only 1% of their GDP? The answer is simple. This week, Macron has been saying we will not move on fishing because the coastal community around France has been plundering British waters for 47 years because the EEC took all of our fishing rights in 1973. Now you want them back. Fishing is totemic because if Macron can't get a good deal on fishing in British waters for the French, he's going to lose all those seats. And who's going to come into play in those seats? Marine Le Pen. Do you remember her? So what's going to happen is that if Macron falls and Le Pen gets in, what's the first thing Le Pen is going to go for?
Leaving the
Brexit referendum. And Angela Merkel needs a Macron because they are the Laurel and Hardy of Europe. They need each other, and we can see the House of Cards starting to fall apart. Fishing always was and really, really is important. Macron, choose Macron, not Macron.
Yes. Well, I've always said as well, because
like
people
that.
who say, "Oh, we haven't got any boats anymore, we haven't got capacity,"
they're all cut
doesn't
up.
matter, because what we can do is say to the French, "Look, you can carry on fishing here, but it's going to cost you £1 million a go.
Yeah, precisely.
Every single boat that comes in, that's £1 million, or
Yeah.
whatever it is that we decide to do." But we can certainly get some money out of them. Because I don't think we could even fish the waters. Not just because we haven't got the boats for it, but we probably haven't got the demand for it, because they eat most of our fish. I don't mind that. They can take it, but they need to pay us.
But the coastal communities of Britain were greatly neglected and abandoned in the 70s. June Mummery, my Brexit Party MEP colleague, was fighting tooth and nail for them, and we did an unlock the other week, and we were hearing stories about fishing boats that were cut up, destroyed in the 70s in Lowestoft, around the south coast, all around Hull and Grimsby. Families, communities were lost. They never fished again.
Up in Scotland probably as well.
It's heartbreaking
In the
what
old East
happened.
Nuke. Yeah.
Well, you think what the fishing industry could be? Emmanuel Macron knows it's a political lifeline for him. That's why, if we take control of our fisheries, Macron is in for the gangplank.
Yeah, I mean,
and
I think he's in
bring
for
it
it
on.
anyway.
It's beautiful. Bring it on.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Le Pen's momentum is, he should be worried. I don't think it just comes down to fishing. But yeah,
No,
that's a huge thing.
Yeah, it's about more than
Well, I
fishing
mean, there's
and
the whole
statues.
Gilets jaunes movement as well,
Yeah.
which hasn't gone away, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
presumably those are largely people from the countryside who are not happy with the kind of elitist types running it all from Paris. And I think one of the things that they're upset about is the cost of fuel, you know, because they use
drove all the way to
an
Paris.
awful lot of agricultural equipment, you know,
Yeah.
they need to,
Lots of parallels with Brexit, out of touch metropolitan elites, not caring about the provinces, not caring about fisheries. And I think Macron's going to head for a bit of a nightmare. And he will have to stand firm on fishing, and so will we, if we're going to have any meaningful form of Brexit. I think we're approaching a fascinating time in politics. And I, for one, would love to see Macron sort of wither away.
Yes, I think
Let's hope Boris can get this one thing right.
Yes.
Bring home the
I
fishing.
mean, let's hope so. I mean, I think it's the one area that he does seem to be doing okay on, as far as I can tell. I mean, you might have a different view, but I mean, I think he appears to be holding quite a strong line on it. And this guy, David Frost, seems to be a pretty
I think glass half
sharp,
full. Glass half full. Give Boris his due.
I'll give him his due for
Frosty
that.
his due, and let's wait and see.
Yeah. All right. Esther, your final one?
The final one, it's a bit, okay, so it's not exactly a jab at Black Lives Matter, but it is significant in the sense that it's SARS, basically, which is the special sort of anti-robbery force in Nigeria. It's a special segment of the Nigerian police force, which just deals with anti-robbery. No,
the
not. And SARS, I saw that and I thought, yeah, you can't really end a virus like that. No, but, you know, it's a completely different ball game. And obviously, most people who haven't lived in West Africa, but in a country like Nigeria, you know, corruption is completely out of control. I mean, more so than you would think. And it shocks me as someone who grew up in Ghana, right? Which is not the country least lacking in corruption, but it is still has its fair bit of corruption. But in Nigeria, it's completely all over the place. And you know, recent footage has come out of instances where these anti-robbery police forces are actually breaking into people's homes, killing people, stopping students, attacking them, robbing their phones. You know, it's so bad and so commonplace that you could hold your phone whilst you're being arrested and just get shot because they don't want you to film you.
Oh wow!
And it's I mean, it takes police brutality to a completely different level. And it's something that I said, you know, Americans. I'm not saying you don't have an issue with police brutality, but look at this. Where is Black Lives Matter? This is a continent with over 90% of Black Lives Matter, Black lives. Where are you? Why are you not making noise about the fact that there is an actual state-sanctioned, almost like brutality?
And is it literally just for money, more or less?
It's literally just for money. I mean, it is the most brutish form of corruption you could ever possibly think of. These people are given weapons by the state and no one questions what they're doing because apparently they're anti-robbery force. But it is a jab at, and it is a huge sign of the failings of whatever the Black Lives Matter organization or movement is now. I don't know what it is.
Right.
Especially here
I don't
in the
think
UK.
anyone does.
I don't think anyone
They've
does.
all kind of gone back to the baseline, and certainly all the white people that used to march around in London when the weather was nice. You don't see them out in the streets now because the weather's not very nice.
Yeah, but it's just to say, where are you now? Where are you when you're actually seeing footage of black people being gunned down by other black people? Where are you? Where is your voice? Where are you to say that actually this form of police brutality is so, I mean, it's so barbaric. You can't even wrap your head around it. And yeah, that's something that I just wanted to point out because for me, that's where I get really infuriated. That these people have made £1.2 million off the back of this movement, and they're literally nowhere to be found when it really matters.
Right. That's quite shocking, isn't it?
A lot of that, well, it's a timely reminder of how tolerant and welcoming and wonderful a place Britain is to live.
Yeah, exactly.
Because for all the talk of
and
police
actually
brutality,
uncorrupt as well.
Yeah, precisely. And for all the talk of how horrific and racist Britain is, in the media at least, it might be timely to pay attention to countries where you actually have proper brutality and horrors. And it's all about selectively picking what fits the agenda, isn't it?
Yeah,
all
exactly.
of this. So let's pick the bad bits of British history to prove that we're endemically evil, and let's ignore the bits that don't fit from elsewhere, such as slave trades in other countries or slave trades in modern day Britain that aren't white people doing it because it doesn't fit the script. And that's what I think we need, a new truth in the media to talk about this in a brutal, no favours way, like what you do on this show and on your show every day.
And it's not like you have to do it. You don't have to go and do stories about Nigeria, but if you're going to do the other stuff, then you do.
You have to be balanced.
Right?
Yeah,
you have to be balanced. If you're going to go banging on about, how many people die in police custody in Britain, then let's start to try and compare
over a decade.
Right.
Which is saying
13 over
something.
a decade, and I don't think they were all black, were they?
No, that's the number of black people that died in police custody. Now, that's not to say they were killed by police. They happened to die while in police custody.
While dying in police custody. And I think most of the deaths in police custody are actually not black.
Well,
that is true, but that's because we're mostly a white country.
Yeah.
A lot of those deaths are for things like overdoses on drugs and whatnot. It's completely untrue to draw the parallels that British is a brutal police state akin to America, let alone places like Nigeria.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I think the people with the bitterest tunes have the loudest trumpets, particularly on social media and in the mainstream media. But I do live in hope that we are coming through a period of more incision, more people speaking out, political movements. Places like talk radio,
I think the
there's new
public are getting a bit
conversations.
more savvy about what they're being told as well. I think the public are sick to death of what we regard as the mainstream media and the kind of narratives that get put out by the BBC and Sky. And if you watch it, I mean, Sky did a thing the other week, didn't they, about how a British company is involved in selling shields to American police forces.
And I was like, great.
And you go, well, okay, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Well, they might use them to hit people with. And some of the people they hit them with might be from black and ethnic minority communities. And you go, well, they can do what they want with the shields. They're buying them. It's an export. What's the problem?
What they could have said was, Britain makes brilliant shields, and they're so good they're being used in the most important riots on the planet, which is trying to bring down an American government. Great.
Yeah, they could have said that.
They could have said that.
But they didn't say any of that, funnily enough.
No.
Now, having said that, we live in a great country and we've already slagged off the police here. I'm now going to slag off the MPs because it turns out that in the midst of all of this, and it beggars belief really, I can't quite understand, if you were running a PR company and you wanted to run the 3 worst PR campaigns in the world, one would be Meghan and Harry, first of all, right? Whoever's advising them has got it completely wrong. The second would be Boris. And the third has to be the Houses of Parliament. Because the MPs, in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, people are getting laid off. I think 800 people were laid off by Green King just the other day. Thousands of people have been laid off by British Airways. Thousands more laid off from all sorts of companies all over the country. They announced that they're going to give themselves another £3,000 pay rise, which is on top of, by the way, a £2,500 pay rise they got this year. They're not going to get the £3,000 till next year. But all of the sitting MPs, and I say Margaret Ferrier gets an honorary mention this week, because that means she will also get an extra £3,000. So £5,500. Now, again, we talk about ordinary people in this country. That's a lot of money. If you went to an average person in this country who makes, I think the average salary is about £27,000 a year. If you said to them, we're going to bump you up to 32, they'd bite your arm off. That is a massive pay rise for them. But for these guys, in addition to the 80,000 they're already getting, they're going to go up to 83. They've still got massive expenses, even though they're getting slightly better at justifying them. I mean, you'll know a bit about this. I remember talking to some of your colleagues from the Brexit Party that it's an even worse gravy train in Brussels, right?
It is,
But in London, it seems ludicrous to me that that the government can say and can turn around and say, oh, actually, it's nothing to do with us. It's the parliamentary process. The Parliamentary Standards Authority awards the pay rise.
What do you mean
why?
awards? From which pocket? It's the public
Well, it just comes out of, we're paying for it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because on the one hand, they don't give it to themselves. It is awarded to them. But they're going, never.
Yeah, but it's not like they couldn't stop it.
Shouldn't it be done based on a good job? Like, why should Sadiq Khan get a pay rise?
Right. Why should he get any money at all?
Exactly.
I mean, Michael
Abolish the man.
Bloomberg, when he was the mayor of New York, because he was a millionaire, mind
Yeah.
you, he did the job for $1.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
refused to take a salary.
Do you know
and
how
I think
difficult
Trump
it is
actually
to get a
refused to take a
5K
salary.
pay rise in a normal job? It's very difficult to get a 5K
No.
pay rise in
Yeah,
like in the
in
span
any
of a
job.
year.
No.
You never hear of it.
Absolutely not.
Why is someone like I have to keep harping on this woman? Why is Dawn Butler getting a pay rise?
So she's getting an extra $5,000. So you'll be able to get a better car. Because it's a pretty crap car that
Oh,
she was
yeah.
caught driving, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, it was a
You know.
BMW apparently.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
5 Series. Yeah.
So it's interesting
Well,
because
then she gets 7 now.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer, Keir Starmer was asked about this pay rise.
Yeah.
And they said, do you think it's right? He went, no, I think it's wrong. But he stopped short of saying he'd pay it back.
Yes.
Because of course they
Well,
won't
that's
pay it
Keir
back.
Starmer all over
Yeah.
it for you,
Yeah,
isn't it?
no,
Yeah,
he thinks it's
precisely.
wrong, but he's
Yeah.
going to take the money.
And I would have liked to have had my fourth plank as Keir Starmer
Yeah.
because we don't have an opposition at the moment.
No.
They're agreeing with
They've
everything the
just
Tories
vanished.
say,
Yeah.
and then blaming them, but they're not objecting. They're
Right.
They're not kicking back against the lockdown.
Right.
They're not kicking back against the 10 p.m. curfew.
No.
They're not kicking back against this three-tiered tears for fears
Right.
nonsense. They're playing along with it. But as for the pay rise, it's all about timing.
Yeah.
The optics are bad, aren't they? You know, millions are going to be
Yeah.
facing the dole towards Christmas, and they're taking an extra 3 or 4 grand. It looks bad.
Right.
It's all about timing. It's terrible for
Yeah,
their PR.
I mean, they should have at least said, look, guys, we've got this in the bag, but now's not the time to announce it.
Yeah, it keeps
I mean,
them-
I'm not suggesting they should have been underhand, but certainly if they'd waited until maybe the new year to say, oh, by the way, this is happening. But not now. Not now that people are about, I mean, people are about to be made redundant in massive numbers because we're coming to the end of October because the furlough scheme's running out. And I know personally people who have had letters already from their employers saying, we're really sorry, we're going to have to downsize the company. You might be one of those people affected. You know, you have to come and talk to us.
What they could have done,
horrendous.
what they could have done, it would have been smart PR. Say, okay, the 3 grand that all of the Labour Party are getting, we're not going to accept,
Right.
and we're going to donate to food banks
Yeah,
or
yeah.
to the
They
NHS.
could
or
have done
whatever.
that.
Made a virtue of,
Yeah.
of small beer,
Yes.
and actually had a huge PR win. But they're not. I think it just shows that they're out of touch, grasping,
Right.
avaricious, and they just can't. Like you said earlier, they can't read the room.
No.
Yeah, they
But
can't.
when
really
you
can't.
see what the, you know, and I always, whenever I get into a row with an MP and they hate it, I always just look at their expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you look at their expenses and you,
said. Yeah,
and
you
you
always
just
do
go, what did you claim? So you claimed for like a
bathtub.
a rubber
That's all
stamp
mother.
or something, or
yeah.
worse than that. No, this was like a rubber stamp or something, £1.50. You claimed for that? For God's sake! I mean,
Yeah.
you know, just buy it. You know,
you can afford it.
you're actually putting a receipt in for £1.50.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Really?
like cashing out a £1
And that's
check.
how they live, these guys. They don't pay for anything.
Yeah.
And in the old, in the bad old days, when old Jackie Smith, you know, was the Home Secretary,
yeah.
and her husband was watching porn
Yeah.
while he was fitting up the old family barbecue
Yeah.
in the so-called second home, which was actually their first home.
Yeah.
And you go, really?
Yeah.
You know, it's not right.
Having said that, if you were married to Jackie Smith, you might watch porn. I don't know.
But
Just saying.
I'm not commenting on that because I already get accused that my
that
Twitch
would-
is quite racy.
Yeah. Also, she's now is she not in Strictly or something?
Right.
Oh,
Isn't she?
what? You know, MPs, former MPs, if you've been in politics, you need to
Well,
stay
they all
away
think
from
they can
Strictly.
do an Ed Balls, because Ed
Yeah.
Balls actually...
But Ed Balls is, okay, I can't
Actually,
believe I'm
Ed
saying
Balls,
he's
you know,
likeable.
he is actually quite likeable,
I
funnily
actually
enough.
like him.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until I heard him doing an interview once on
Yeah.
5 Live, I think it was. And he came across really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't watch Strictly, so I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't care less about that. But he actually is quite an interesting bloke, quite
Yeah.
a thoughtful guy. But she isn't. She really isn't.
She is not.
The less said about that, the better. Right, so anyway, here's what we do now, Martin. We've got 9 names and or organisations. The 10th will be Margaret Ferrier, so we'll chuck her in there somewhere. But what we have to do now is try and get it down to 3, right?
Mike.
So, Esther, I'm going to ask you to pick your favourite one of his out of 3.
Okay.
So tell us your 3 again.
I had Sadiq Khan, I had Frankie Boyle,
Yeah.
and I had Emmanuel
Not a
Macron.
bad list.
Oh, Sadiq. Sadiq Khan.
You want to
is
go for
always,
Sadiq? It's
Yeah.
got to be Sadiq.
There you
It
go.
was Sadiq
Double top.
Khan with a T at the end.
Right, so you've picked one of mine, which is the MP's pay rise.
Yeah.
I have to remember what they were now. I don't know. My
It was the
brain
cops.
is gone.
It was the Met.
The Metropolitan Police and the National Maritime Museum.
I'm going to go for the Metropolitan Police
Okay.
because I really do think we have to support people like Darren Grimes.
Yes.
I think we have to support every journalist. And I think this is the thin end of the wedge.
Yeah.
If the cops are going to start policing the speech of journalists,
Yeah.
we're frankly heading towards a society that I don't recognise as British.
And
No.
they still haven't released my Dawn Butler footage.
No, there you
So
go.
they definitely
So
that's
they
a
can double up of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I'll go for the Met.
So Metropolitan Police and Sadiq Khan. So what were your 3 were?
Mine were CCP,
Yes.
Dominic West, and
Yes.
Lily James. Actually, they can be a nice plank couple.
That's quite good, isn't it?
And SARS.
And SARS, yeah.
Yeah.
I think SARS might confuse people, but it will
Yeah.
still be in there as part of
SARS,
the top
common
10.
Nigeria. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've got to go for China.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, China.
Yeah.
Let's give China, going over because they've not been in it for a while.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So-
In terms of the crimes committed, I don't like Dominic West,
Yeah.
but I think China's worse.
Well,
Yeah.
also he won it last week, so he can come in as like number 4 or
Number
something.
4,
That'd
yeah.
be fine.
Honorary
So
mention.
China, Metropolitan Police, Sadiq Khan.
Yeah, not a bad list.
It's not a
Yeah,
bad
not
list.
a bad
Sadiq's
list.
in it a lot, by the way.
I bet
Yeah,
he is,
Sadiq's always
he will probably win Plank of the Year just
Yeah.
purely
Just-
on points.
Decade.
Because he's just in it every week practically.
Basically.
By the way, I forgot to mention this. I was on my way to Sussex last Friday. I was ordered to go to IKEA, so I had to go to IKEA in Greenwich. Right, it took me an hour to drive from here to
Yeah.
Greenwich,
Yeah.
which is approximately 4 miles, something
Yeah.
like that. And I took a couple of pictures because they've made the road that goes out towards the Blackwall Tunnel from Greenwich, which is used to have a bus lane and a lane next to it. They've changed the bus lane into a cycle lane, right? And so, of course, there were no cyclists going down it. And so I just took 2 pictures. The Express picked it up and had me humiliating Sadiq Khan. So I just went, well, congratulations, Sadiq. And they made quite a big splash of it, but it was very funny. And because he constantly refuses to come on my show.
Yeah, he would do.
I'm now being followed on Twitter by his press office.
Really?
So I'm assuming they're now starting to pay attention a little bit.
He is just
But,
useless. Oh my god.
but
Just
he
for that,
is.
he should just be.
But should we
But I
make
feel
him?
like
We shouldn't make him number
Metropolitan
1, though.
Police-
I think it's
No.
got to be the Metropolitan Police.
I
isn't
think
it?
it should be the
Yeah.
You think?
Metropolitan Police.
I'm happy to concede on that point. I do think that while Khan is a perennial planker,
He is in there a lot.
he's perennial.
Yeah.
I think this week I'll give it to
Solidarity
you.
with,
Yeah, and
I'll give it to you
solidarity
with Darren Grimes.
I think
Okay,
so,
well,
yeah.
listen, here it is. We've got a real plank now, right? So this was sent in by one
I
of
was
our
going to
listeners.
ask, what is that?
This is the plank. This is the plank. So plank of the week goes to
Okay.
Metropolitan Police. Thank you to Martin Daubney. Thank you to Esther Krakue. We'll see you next week. Don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll see you then.